His book is called First Casualty, This Untold Story of the CIA Mission to Avenge 9/11. An award-winning journalist and author, Toby Harnden, joins us now. Toby, welcome to the show.
Hi, Robert. Very glad to be here.
Now, the CIA, many people don't know this, they were America's first warriors on the battlefront in Afghanistan. How did that come about? Was it out of urgency, necessity?
I think both those things. So, yeah, absolutely. Immediately after 9/11, I mean, I remember it vividly. I was in Washington, D.C. that day. There was this sort of national kind of imperative to get in there. And certainly that was the way that President Bush was treating it. And, we were all fearful of the next attack coming. And, and also there was this, I think understandable and legitimate sort of desire for vengeance, to hit back at the people who killed, 3,000 at the Pentagon in New York and in Pennsylvania. And remarkably, the Pentagon didn't have a plan for Afghanistan. So General Tommy Franks was, in command of CENTCOM. He didn't have anything sort of on the shelf. And so what he was proposing was, it would take sort of months and it would be a conventional invasion. And there was just this sort of sense, I think, politically, but also just in terms of the nation, that we just couldn't wait that long. But the CIA had been in Afghanistan, in the 1980s, sort of funding and facilitating the Mujahideen fighting the Soviets, so sort of proxy war. Soviets left in '89, and most US policymakers sort of turned their back on Afghanistan, but a small number of people in the CIA sort of kept in contact. And then you had the rise of bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and eventually bin Laden relocating to Afghanistan, given safe haven by the Taliban regime, from Sudan. And so then, there was a lot of focus on Afghanistan from the agency. And then from 99 onwards, so 2 years before 9/11, there were CIA teams that were going into the Panjshir Valley to meet with Ahmad Shah Massoud, who turned out was eventually assassinated 2 days before 9/11. And David Tyson, actually, who in some ways is the central figure of the book, he was on those missions. Rich Blee was another sort of well-known CIA officer who was part of that. He headed up Alex Station, the bin Laden unit. So these teams would be going in and out, and the CIA had developed a concept of, supporting the Northern Alliance, the indigenous resistance to the Taliban, who were harboring Al-Qaeda, as a way of getting at bin Laden. And in fact, the CIA had been sort of straining at the leash to get the authorities to go after Al-Qaeda and bin Laden, hadn't got them from the Clinton administration or the Bush administration. That all changed on 9/11. And then Kofor Black, who was the head of the Counterterrorism Center, basically, briefed Bush in the Situation Room, like, we have a plan. And Bush went for it.
Now, the title of the book is First Casualty, and obviously that refers to Mike Spann. And for people that don't know who he was, could you give us some background on Michael?
Sure. So Johnny Michael Spann was his given name. The Michael spelt EA, so the Irish way. He was 32 years old. He'd been a Marine Corps officer in the Anglico, so Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company. He had joined the CIA just 2 years earlier as a paramilitary officer, and he'd met Shannon Spann, who had become his wife in June 2001 at the farm. They'd been on the same course. He had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and Shannon and Mike had a son, Jake, who was 3 months old on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And I actually spent time with Shannon and some of the Team Alpha members this week. And, her life obviously was sort of turned upside down. But we were talking about Mike naturally. And I feel that Mike was sort of in a way, the personification of America after 9/11. I mean, I think he was that way before 9/11, but sort of black and white, take the fight to the enemy. He wasn't a person of sort of ambiguity or maybe nuance. He knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to be at the tip of the spear. He wanted to get in there. He had every reason to sit this one out. You know, he just newly married, young baby,
Sure.
complicated domestic situation because his ex-wife was terminally ill from cancer, who actually died a month after he did at the end of 2001. So, you know, very complicated situation. But Mike's view, and, you know, I think this extended to the rest of the team, but he was the one who kind of expressed it most strongly, was that he needed to get out there. And I mean, I was talking to Shannon about this. He had a discussion with his daughter Alison, who was sort of said, you know, she was like 9 years old, saying, like, "Daddy, do you have to go?" And he said, "I have to go because what if every daddy said they didn't want to go? You know, who would protect us?" So he sort of saw protecting his family and protecting his country as sort of the same thing. And so he was the type of person who I mean, he sort of fought to get on the team. I mean, he really wanted to get out there, and that's what he did. And Shannon, I mean, it was very poignant in the eulogy that I mentioned before. Shannon said that when Mike died, he was in the right place at the right time. And by that, I mean, I asked her about it this week, and she said that what she meant was that, you know, this was his career, this was his life, this was who he was, and he wouldn't have wanted to be, you know, anywhere else. And, you know, and I guess, you know, by implication, he would have had, you know, he died doing what he wanted to do, and would have felt it was an honorable death. And I thought that was a very sort of poignant thing for a widow to say.
The book is called First Casualty. Toby, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been great.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Robert. I appreciate it.
Catch the full episode at the link in this video's description, or check out another video and click that subscribe button for more great content.